So, Tony, thank you for taking the time, first of all. It's a really pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Danke.
Um, my first question is about the box set, Everything Is Now, which takes us back to the very early days, the days before the fame, when music history was just about to be written. And I was wondering, what is your involvement in such a project and what does your work on it look like?
Um, I'll be really honest with you. My work doesn't involve very much with it. The rest of the guys have been involved in that, not really me. So I mean, obviously they have my blessing, and it's an interesting box set. Yeah, and I don't know, if I'm really honest, not too much about it, but I've endorsed it and said, yeah, that's fine, and those guys have put it all together. So I think some very interesting stuff on there, demos and things that have never been heard before. So it's an interesting box set.
Then let's go back to 1978, to the Gentry days. When you think, when I just mentioned the name 1978, what comes to mind?
It was a bloody long time ago. it's I mean, I mean, things were changing then. I mean, it was, you know, the whole punk scene in the UK, it was changing, and all of a sudden you had this sort of kind of music was more. I mean, for instance, like Berlin was a massive influence with bands like Kraftwerk, and Bowie was over in Berlin, Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, and the whole music scene was changing, sort of from punk to kind of electro. So everything in 1978 was changing. I mean, I loved punk, and we were, before we were Gentry, we were called the Makers. We were sort of like a power pop kind of Generation X kind of band. And but then things were changing, as I said, with Kraftwerk, and you had Lou Reed, Bowie. I mean, and Berlin's always had a sort of slightly mystical kind of vibe to it. So there was some really interesting music coming out of that amazing city, and that had a major influence on music. So all of a sudden you had the establishment of the Billy's Club, then the Blitz Club, and this whole kind of futurist movement. You had bands like Ultravox with John Fox, Human League. Then we became Spandau Ballet, and then you had Duran in Birmingham. So the whole music scene changed quite drastically around that time.
When you think of the influence of the Blitz Club and the people there on you as a frontman, did it influence the way you imagined yourself as a frontman to become, or did it change the way you felt about being a frontman?
I don't think it changed the way I felt about being a frontman. I mean, I'd been singing. We'd been a band since I was 16, and before that, I'd sung in competitions around the country and stuff. So singing was what I wanted to do. I was really serious about it and studied it as well. And I suppose because of the nature of the kind of Blitz Club and the fashion, we sort of we looked like very stern, angry young men, and we weren't actually. We were a bunch of young guys having a really good time.
When the whole fame thing kicked in, how did you experience it?
To be honest, I never took it too seriously. Um, my friends are still the same friends that I had when I was at school. My oldest friend is from primary school, and I still keep in touch with, and people keep in touch with me from primary school and from secondary school. So really, although I might have looked out of place in my local pub dressed as a futurist, my, my mates were still the same. They're still the same guys and girls as well. So yeah, I, it's a weird thing, isn't it? Fame. It's a very superficial thing. All of a sudden, you become famous and you're on top of the pops, and everybody wants to know you and be your best friend. But I never, thank God, never really took it too seriously. So, and I still don't to this day. It's a very, I don't know, fickle thing, isn't it? Fame.
But fame oftentimes obviously also changes the dynamics within a band. So I was wondering, how did this feel like when it kicked in?
Yeah, I mean, we were always fairly grounded as a band, I think. I mean, the one good thing about number one, I think we kept ourselves grounded, amongst ourselves, but also our parents were really good people, really good, ordinary people. And they would all get together and they were really proud of what we achieved. But I don't think any of us took it that seriously. It's a very dangerous thing because egos can be very dangerous within a band, and there has been some egos within Spandau-Ballet, that's for sure. But I think I checked mine in a long time ago.
Okay. One of the highlights for the fans of the whole box set is obviously the song Eyes, which is an unreleased song out of the Chantry era. It
Yeah.
hasn't been released until now. And I was wondering, can you talk a bit about it and how you feel about hearing it
Well,
now?
I hadn't heard it for years. I mean, it was a bit of a shock. I mean, it's kind of one of our first stabs at kind of electro music. And I remember at the time I was having singing lessons with this amazing Canadian opera singer called Pamela Dodds. And she said, I don't want to make you sound like an opera singer. She said, but I want to give you the ability to still be singing in 40 odd years time, which is true. And I still sing in the same keys, and my voice is still up there, and it feels good. But I was also going through this I was listening to a lot of Sinatra at the time, a lot of early Tony Bennett, Mario Lanza. So you could hear those influences you could hear the influence in the way I'm singing. It's very kind of almost kind of semi-operatic. And it's an interesting tune, that's for sure. It sounds like a demo, which it is, but it certainly sounds interesting, yeah.
An interesting clash of influences when you mentioned Tony Bennett and those kind of vocalists, and then with as Gary called it, a gothic post-punk kind of vibe at the time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you listen to early Sinatra, I mean, I loved punk. I loved Queen. Well, I still love Queen. Love Queen, Hall & Oates and Roxy Music, Bebop Deluxe, and all those kind of great bands, Mark Bolan. But if you listen to early Sinatra, he sang in a very kind of clipped, almost semi-operatic way. And I think that definitely had an influence on the way I approached the songs at the time, yeah.
Back at that time, you or the band decided that the song Eyes didn't fit on the record. Were you right in hindsight, or would you have included it from today's standpoint?
To be honest, I mean, I think it's too long, certainly for today's radio. But no, I actually think listening to it now, I think we should have included it. It had all the elements of that kind of synth era, that kind of futurist sound, and I think we should have included it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you have to dive back into your own back catalog, you said you didn't have to do it that much for this project, but for instance, when you make a tour, as you're doing, and performing your old songs and rethinking them, do you enjoy going back in your past artistically?
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I think the thing to remember is that if you've been around for as long as you have a legacy, you have a musical legacy. And whether you like it or not, I like it. I don't mind. I don't have a problem with it. Singing, things like To Cut a Long Story Short, Through the Barricades, True Gold, Only When You Leave, Highly Strung. I never get bored of singing those songs. Every audience is a different audience. And if you love music and you love playing music, then you attack it in the same way every time. It doesn't really diminish. I mean, there are a lot of artists out there who, frankly, so I don't want to sing any of my old songs. And I think that's musical suicide, because people are there to see you because of your legacy and because of your history. So when we tour, we give everybody what they want. We give them all the hits and more. Plus, there's a new contemporary album coming out next year. So we'll be playing a handful of 2 or 3 songs from that. And the main thing is just enjoy it. I think I've seen too many artists that look like they're not enjoying life anymore on stage. And at that point, I think it's time to give up. I mean, I'm still ambitious. I've got a big band tour that's going out November, December in the UK with a vinyl album with big band songs. As I said, I've got the contemporary album next year. We're touring Europe. Yeah, life's pretty good. Yeah.
You're also coming to Berlin and to other German cities with the project. What can fans expect from those concerts?
Well, as I said, they just, we have a fabulous band. I call them the Fabulous TH Band, and we've been together for, wow, many, many years now. Myself and Phil Williams, our bass player, we've known each other for over 30 years, which is kind of crazy. Some of our crew guys I've known for 25, 30 years. So it's like a little family. And we have a lot of fun together. We have a lot of laughs, and we enjoy playing the music. We still get on stage and just have a lot of fun. And we want the crowd to join in and sing along. And I suppose from the crowd's point of view, it brings back memories. I remember when the Berlin Wall was coming down, and there we were chipping away at the Berlin Wall, and there's the East German guards and stuff, and then the East Germans were coming through. I remember, we played a gig in Berlin that night, and when we played Through the Barricades, which is your kind of Romeo and Juliet type song, love song across the divide, yeah, I mean, it was quite incredible. It was quite emotional, and for me, that is still my favourite song. I get such a kick out of singing that song, and I think that's the thing. If you enjoy singing and playing, you don't really ever get tired of the music. I mean, look at Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra. I mean, how many times did Frank sing My Way? But
Yeah.
he still sang it with fortissimo, and he sang it with vigor. Same with Tony Bennett, The Good Life, or San Francisco. So I think once you love a song, it sort of stays with you, really. Yeah.
What about touring? You said you still love singing, but do you still enjoy touring?
Yeah, I do actually. We're in a beautiful little hotel in Italy somewhere. I'm not sure where, near Udine, and yeah, we got the mountains and everything. The thing that gets you is the touring isn't too bad. Well, it's the traveling. Obviously, that sort of normally when we're coming to Europe, we'll be in a sleeper bus. So that's our party bus. That's got a toilet. It's got a kitchen. So we have a lot of fun. But around Italy at the moment, and we're doing quite a lot of driving, and that kind of makes you tired. If there's one thing that wears you out, it's certainly the traveling. But the gigs themselves, fantastic. And then we get to see all these beautiful places. I mean, looking out here, there's beautiful countryside, mountains. So I'm still probably as ambitious as I was even as a young man, probably even more so. I still feel I want to be a better singer, I want to be a better writer, and I'm enjoying life.
But touring is always the hardest for the lead vocalist because the other guys can just play their guitars, but you have to keep your voice in shape and you have to remain healthy because,
Yeah.
I mean, you can play guitar with a fever, but you can't really, I mean, you can sing. How do you cope with that? How do you stay healthy and how do you
Um,
keep your voice that great?
I just really sleep. That's the key to it. I mean, I've gone through all sorts of scenarios over the years, and the key to it is getting sort of 9, 10 hours sleep. So I can sing pretty much night after night after night as long as I'm getting the sleep. The one thing, I mean, doing too many shows back to back, I mean, vocally I'm okay, but it's because it's so loud on stage and you've got so much music. 2 or 3 shows in a row is kind of the most because your head just wants to explode because of the volume of the music. But on this current run, I mean, I've got 6 shows back to back. But I feel good. Just try and eat healthy. Have a drink, have a glass of wine and a beer, but don't go too crazy.
So no parties, no extensive parties afterwards.
No. Well, even in the days of Spandau, because as a singer, as you said, you've got a responsibility. If the amp breaks, it can be replaced. If the string breaks, it can be replaced. So pretty much all the time when we were on tour with Spandau in the early days, I would have a couple of beers at the bar, and then I'd go straight to bed, and the guys would stay up, and sometimes they go clubbing and everything else. But you can't do that if you're a singer. You absolutely vocal suicide. It's no, you don't. You just can't do it.
But was it hard for you, especially when you were a young man? I mean, not to drink that third beer maybe at the bar while your friends are having a ball?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it was, yeah. I mean, when I had 2 or 3 days off, they normally used to assign someone with me. So they put someone to look after me because I go completely crazy. Yeah, it was kind of difficult at times. But you have a responsibility, and cancelling a show is one of the most hardest things to have done. I mean, it's only happened a couple of times, 2 or 3 times in my career, which is not bad. Yeah, I mean, it is difficult sometimes when the boys are going out and partying. But then, when I was a young guy, I mean, I was married at 22, I was a dad at 23. So the other guys were all young, free, and single, and so it didn't really matter to them. So it's probably best I went to bed anyway.
You just mentioned a new release next year, a solo release. Can you talk a bit about it?
Yeah, I've been working on it for a while. I mean, in the meantime, I had a swing album called The Mood I'm In, which was released February last year to coincide with the UK tour. I've got the new big band swing album coming out October, November this year. Yeah, December. I've been working on the contemporary album for some time. Very anthemic, great songs. We've got a couple of cracking band songs there, which we've got to finish. Nearly all of it is produced and written. Gary Stevenson I've been working with a lot, and Mick Lister as well, and my band. Yeah, it sounds good. It's very anthemic. There's a good classic old rock and roll song on there called "Turn Me On," which is, it's one of the ones where you get your lighter out at the end of the night. It's kind of, yeah, I love a bit of rock. So yeah, but no, I'm really pleased with it. Really pleased with it.
What's when, as a vocalist, working with a big band, working with a pop or a rock band, what would you say is the main difference, and what are the main challenges for each?
Well, because of my parents, the influence from my parents as a young lad. I mean, so I grew up listening to all that kind of classic swing, the swing singers, as I mentioned, Sinatra, Jack Jones, Tony Bennett, Sammy Davis. It's rock singing's it's a lot harder, if I'm honest, because the songs tend to be a higher key. I mean, even songs like Lifeline and Only When You Leave are quite high. Where when you're singing something like, The Good Life, or even My Way, or The Summer Wind, they tend to be, they're crooner keys. So it's a ba 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 ba. They're not, they're not really hard hitting keys. And so it's not a different way of singing, but it's just a different kind of, I suppose, the different keys really, and you sing those keys in a different way.
So you sing with a big band, but you sing against a rock band in regards of the
Yeah, in
levels and
a
stuff.
way, it's kind of, yeah, because when you're with the rock band, although my rock band are going to be on stage with me with the brass section, it's a different kind of approach. Everything's a lot softer. The way the drummer is, the guitars tend to be sort of semi-acoustic. You've got some big sounds going on with the brass section, but it's a slightly different way of singing. But I love it. I love it to bits. And if there's any big band swing things going on in Germany, we'd love to hear from you and come over and do that as well. It would be brilliant.
Awesome. Let's go back for a minute to the year 1978. I was wondering, what were your expectations? With which mindset did you go into the band, and were you surprised about how it developed later on?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was singing when I was singing at choirs in school and stuff. So I've been singing for years, and we formed the band at what was going to be the precursor to Spandau Ballet back in 1976 at our school, Dame Ellis Owens, and I think we had a sense of determination. Like all bands, we were playing R&B covers to begin with, like Saw Us Standing There, Midnight Hour, Silver Train, stuff like that. But as we started to develop as a band, and Gary and Steve started writing songs, we kind of developed, and we sort of thought to ourselves, yeah, we can do this, we can make this. And when we were called the Makers, as I said, like a kind of Generation X style punk band. We really thought we were on the verge of getting signed to a record company. And then the whole punk thing imploded, and we went in a completely different direction, as did, I suppose, many bands at the time. As I mentioned, Duran and Depeche and the Human League, and hit that kind of futurist button. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, our expectations were, we were quite confident that we would make it, we would get a record deal. But you dream a lot and you hope a lot. When the reality hits home, it's like, wow, we've done it, we're on top of the pops. There's a sense of euphoria that I can't explain. It's just, But then you worry. Then all of a sudden, all you do is you worry. We just had a big hit, but to cut long story short, and it's done really, really well. And then you worry about the next hit and the next hit and everything else. And we had a couple of bumpy moments, but we got through them as a band. So we were okay, yeah.
Does one ever learn to stop worrying then as a musician when the band's still going?
Yeah, I mean, I think we slightly stopped worrying towards the end of the band. I mean, by the time we got to sort of Heart Like a Sky, I don't think I was overly worried about what happened. I think by that point we'd lost the spirit as a band anyway. You know, but I suppose with a song like Through the Barricade in the UK, it was only number 6, and I always felt it should have been a number 1 without a doubt. But yeah, I mean, the trouble is with bands, you tend to sort of sometimes run out of steam, and I think we very much did that towards the end of our career, which was sad. But these things happen to bands.
Mm-hmm. So you would say the spark couldn't be reignited?
Yeah, I just think things with relationships within bands are very complicated anyway. And the relationship within the band towards the end of that 80s period, I don't think not all of us were enjoying it as much as we used to. There was a spirit of real camaraderie and, you know, we're going to go here and we're going to go together and it's going to be fabulous. And we lost that spark. I think, as you're right, we lost that spark. And the making of the last album, it's an album I can't even listen to. So I've not listened to it since the day I recorded it. And yeah, so not that I go back and listen to my old albums anyway. I've never really done that. I'm the sort of bloke that makes an album, be it a solo album or a Spandau album, and then I move on to the next project. I don't dwell on it.
So the last record brings back too many bad memories for you then, or just because the time wasn't very good?
Yeah, not very horrible. I hated making it. I'm honest with you, I absolutely hated it. It was one of the worst periods of my life. And at that point, I thought I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. And I think all of us felt the same.
But sorry.
So, well, I said it's sad, but that's life. That's the way it goes.
But when you're in such a situation, what do you do? Do you just soldier on and say, okay, let's bring this to an end and let's get this done? Or
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, once you're making the album, you're in the throes of it. And then we had a tour, and you know, not everyone was as enthusiastic probably as I was to go on tour, because I thought going on tour would remedy the situation within the band. And it kind of didn't really. And I think we got to the end of the tour and realised that it was time to go our separate ways. And I think from my own point of view, and I've said this many times, I felt that we would all go off, do our separate things and have our separate solo projects, and then we would get together every now and again, and a bit like a Phil Collins and Genesis, but that sort of kind of didn't really happen.
Mm-hmm. But the solo project was always vital for keeping the interest going in the latter years, or?
Yeah, well, I wanted to carry on making music. I mean, my first solo album, it was, what was it called? Oh no, can't even remember what it was called now. Anyway, I mean, I was going through this phase of music where I mean, I love American rock music. I love all that kind of stuff. And I went and made the album in America with Ron Neverson and the State of Play. That was called, the State of Play. And I think I saw myself as a bit of a rocker. And halfway through the album, I thought, "Wow, Tony, you're making the wrong album here." But it's still some great stuff on it. It's there's still some good stuff, but it certainly wasn't the right album to make.
It's interesting that you recognized it half time and you said it for yourself then.
Yeah. A really unfortunate thing, because by that point it's you know, a record company and everybody spent so much money and time, and I realized it was just, you know, being a rocker wasn't really me. I'm more kind of down the sort of Robert Palmer-y kind of route, really, which combines sort of clever pop rock.
So let me ask you one last question, because I think we're almost out of time, and I don't want to take your time too long. You just mentioned a moment when you were young and when you're having your first success, when you recognize, yeah, you've made it. You mentioned
Yeah.
Top of the Pops. Was there any particular moment where you thought about, yes, okay, this is it. Now we're rolling.
Yeah, yeah, a memory that's still there. So I was, so to cut long story short, was being released was released as a single, and it was getting lots of airplay. Nobody knew who we were, who I was, because we hadn't been on Top of the Pops at that point, and Top of the Pops was the TV program to go on for that instant recognition. And I remember as me and a bunch of my mates, and we were all going to a pub in South London, and a bit of a rough pub as well. And we all walked in, and there's me looking like Robin Hood or Captain Scarlet or something. And they're just my drinking buddies, you know. And we walked in, and to cut long story short, was playing on the DJ was playing the song, and all my mates going, "Oh, that's your song!" That's your song. I went, "Yeah, wow, this is good." And at that moment, I thought, "Yeah, this is cool. I think we're going to get there." Yeah, and it was a little moment that I've never forgotten. And my mates were all there was a whole bunch of us, girls and guys, and they were all like, "Wow, Tone, this is great." So yeah, and my friends have never, I have to say, have never treated me any differently, just because I've been on TV shows or have performed at Live Aid or anything else. They've never treated me any differently. They're still the same guys. I'll tell you a quick story actually. So there's a good friend of mine, Tony Dodds. We'd actually been on Top of the Pops, and we were having a bit of a hit record. And his grandmother said to him, "Oh, we'd be buying his mother a big mansion soon." And he went, "Shut up, Nan." He said he had to borrow £20 off of me in the pub the other night. So, and that is absolutely true, because people do think that if you go on television, that it's like, mix this with TV and you're an instant millionaire. It takes a lot of work and a lot of graft before you become sort of vaguely financially secure. And he was right. I had to borrow 20 quid off him to buy a pint.
But it's cool that the confirmation by your mates was an important moment. It's very
Yeah,
grounded, very
yeah,
down to earth.
it does keep you grounded, and I thank them for that. And they're a great bunch of lads, a really good bunch of lads. So I'm very lucky, very lucky.